Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So this is kind of a long show. I'm hoping you'll stick around because this, I believe, is very important information, especially for those of you who hear about this election audit going on in Arizona or other allegations about the election, and you start to think, as I have on occasion, well, maybe there's something to this. They're saying that this is missing or that's been erased, or you start to question when people are so sure that something has occurred. They start to make you, as a sane, rational person, question, could this be legitimate? Right? Because we know our government lies to us. So it's not 100% completely far-fetched to think, hey, maybe something did occur. Well, I've been looking into some of this, and here's the deal. This is all such nonsense, and I think that their goal is to just confuse people and keep them believing that something occurred without actually providing any evidence. And I'm going to tell you exactly how they're going to do that. So in January of this year, Senate Republicans issued subpoenas to Maricopa County officials in the state of Arizona. They demanded access to the 2.1 million Maricopa County ballots cast in last year's election, and all of the county's voting machines, the county's voter rolls, as well as, quote, access or control of all routers, tabulators, or combinations thereof used in connection with the administration of the 2020 election and the public IP of the router. Now, if you look at any right-wing media sites or watch right-wing propaganda news stations, and I say news with air quotes, you would believe that Maricopa County is trying to hide something. And that's why they're refusing to give access to their routers. And you would also believe that they've wiped information from election machines because they use bullshit headlines, especially in print. And then they bury the truth in the article where most of these people will never see it because, just like their dear leader, one term, twice impeached Trump, they refuse to read. They refuse to do any investigation of their own. Perfect example today, the right-wing propaganda rag known as the Epoch Times. They published a story today with this headline. It said, auditor, information deleted from Maricopa County election machine has been recovered. So if you see that headline and you don't read the story, what are you going to come away thinking? You're going to think this information, there was information that was deleted, right? They didn't say information allegedly deleted. No, information deleted has been recovered. So you would believe that Maricopa County election officials wiped this machine of information and, oh my God, this is the smoking gun. But if you read the actual story, you find something completely different. So the founder of a firm called Cypher, which is spelled C-Y-F-I-R, it's a man named Bob Cotton. He had accused Maricopa County officials of deleting a database directory from an election machine server. And he's been reviewing this as part of this bogus QAnon-led audit in Arizona. Allegations that were then parroted by a state senator, by Karen Fann, who's a Retrumplican. So Maricopa County officials denied these allegations, and then they lobbed their own accusations the other way and said in a formal letter that these so-called election auditors clearly don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know what they're looking at. And they obviously are unable to navigate the files that they were given. So they questioned how legitimate these companies could be if they can't even find these files. Well, what do you know? The very next day after they made that statement, this Cotton guy, all of a sudden, he's able to find these supposedly missing, deleted files. Oh my gosh, we found them. So to troll these Q morons, Maricopa County officials tweeted out the following. They said, quote, just want to underscore that Arizona Senate's Arizona Audit account accused Maricopa County of deleting files, which would be a crime. Then, a day after our technical letter explained they were just looking in the wrong place, all of a sudden, auditors have recovered the files. And they even put the word auditors in quotes, just in case their sarcasm escaped someone. So buried in this Epoch Times article is this excerpt, quote, the Maricopa County Elections Department, in a technical analysis, said officials and subject matter experts reviewed the allegation and found the database folder in question was not deleted. So you have the Elections Department saying, no, files there. You have other officials saying, no, files are there. But their headline reads, deleted files found. But what do they care? Because these election deniers, which is the bulk of their readers, aren't going to ever see that. And the article goes on to say that Cotton is confused about why the county won't just hand their routers over to people like him. So this is the trick I think they're using. I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a minute. According to election experts, granting these nut jobs access to the routers for Maricopa County would give them the ability to obtain county's emails. They could easily target other crucial and possibly private information. The county attorney actually said that access to the routers could expose residents' social security and public health information, as well as law enforcement data. Now, a research engineer named Matt Bernhard said that providing access to these routers is a pretty specific risk. That's a direct quote. He also said that although things like social security, medical, law enforcement data doesn't reside on a router, the information that is found on a router could make it easier to hack into the county's network and retrieve that sensitive and private data. So you're giving somebody an in to a county system, not accredited auditors, not legitimate companies, companies like Cyber-Ninjas. And Bernhard would know what he's talking about. He works for a nonpartisan, nonprofit company. It's called Voting Works, and they advocate for open source election technology. In addition, Barnard and other election security consultants from around the country are now questioning why the auditors even need access to the router in order to complete their audit. When questioned about the need for the routers, a Senate liaison for the audit said that, well, we're trying to determine whether or not Dominion's machines were connected to the internet during the election. But a county official said that Cyber-Ninjas already has the information and machines necessary to perform that analysis. The official said that in compliance with the Senate subpoena that they received, the county handed over, quote, Windows event logs, precinct-based tabulator logs, election management system workstations, server logs, and more. And then she also noted that, quote, someone with knowledge of the equipment would be able to confirm through a review of those logs that the equipment was not connected to the internet. So do they even know what the hell they're doing? On top of what she's saying, there were already independent audits performed. There were 2 independent audits conducted by outside firms, auditing firms that actually are accredited by the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, unlike these clowns. Those two accredited firms said, no, we checked the machines, we ran every test that we could. They're not connected to the internet. They were not connected to the internet. Now, to be fair, another expert named Nicholas Weaver said that the router could have logs about internet access that differs from what's found on a server or the voting machine. But he said that a thorough check of the machine should answer that question. So the routers are unnecessary. Weaver also said, quote, what the routers would provide the state recounters is absolutely nothing other than making life completely miserable for those providing the data. He said that there's, quote, no logic in regard to this demand, and that it's, quote, a 100% malicious request. He's saying this because the county would have to take the routers offline first and make a forensic copy of the contents of the router in order to comply with this request. In the interim, while it's offline, they would have to install new routers just to conduct daily county business. So he concludes that, this is not only a major pain in the ass, but it places the county at risk, and there's no discernible benefit to it. There's no reason they should need those routers. Weaver, by the way, just so you know, is a network security researcher at the International Computer Science Institute. He's also a computer science lecturer at UC Berkeley. So, one would assume he might know a little bit about this. In addition to the pain in the ass for the county and the risk involved, this also comes with a steep price tag. The county supervisor's chairman said that replacing the routers so that cyber ninjas and others can inspect them would cost the county $6 million. Because we're not talking about routers like you have in your home. These are complex, according to officials. These are routers that can be programmed, they store activity and data, and they say that they can protect the system from hackers. So these are like high-tech commercial type of routers that are not just like, oh, hey, here, I bought a router, let's plug it in and get going. Not the same thing at all. Maricopa County's routers, in fact, route traffic and information to and from 50 different county departments. One official explained that, quote, if you have access to the router, you potentially have the IP blueprints for the entire county, giving a hacker the ability to infiltrate or intercept confidential and sensitive information on the county network. And another man named Alex Halderman, he's a computer science and engineering professor who specializes in election security. He told a local news outlet in Arizona that these routers could contain information about virtual private networks or firewall configurations or even IP addresses of confidential servers where law enforcement data is stored. So all of that can be used by hackers to do damage. He warned that providing untrusted parties with access to the routers and passwords, quote, might create very real risk for the county. In addition, neither county officials or observers were present when the auditors made virtual copies of the Dominion machines. Halderman said that he found that pretty remarkable, direct quote, because they could have easily tampered with those machines when they had them and nobody else was looking over their shoulder. He also said that they could use what they learned about the machines to hack into those same machines later or similar machines. And remember, cyber ninjas, the so-called lead election auditor, has zero experience in election audits or anything having to do with election fraud. The CEO is an election denier. He's a QAnon believer, and no one in Florida with any knowledge in election security or elections audits has ever heard of this company, even though that's the state in which they're based. So clearly, We can't trust anything these people say or do. One person who's questioning the true motives of Cyber Ninja's request for the routers is a man named Matt Masterson. He's the former head of election security from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Jesus, that's a long name. Masterson said that when voting systems are tested at the federal level, it's standard practice for auditors to provide information about what standards they plan to use to test the equipment, how it will be tested, and then what details will be provided in the final report. However, Cyber Ninjas has done none of that. None of that. I mean, we all know they're over there testing for bamboo. And Masterson also said, quote, "The request leaves those who understand these systems and processes with their hand up in the air saying, 'What are you doing? What are you trying to do?'" So none of this is making sense to any experts out there. And then other requested items that are being questioned are the password and security tokens for Dominion machines. That was another thing that was listed in the subpoena. Maricopa County doesn't have that information. That's something that only Dominion can provide. And they've said that they'll only release their passwords to an accredited firm. So Cyber Ninjas is out of luck. And Masterson said he doesn't even understand what information they're seeking with the passwords and the Dominion security tokens, because he said source code isn't retained on voting machines. Apparently, that's against the law to retain that information because it's proprietary information from the software company. And that's something that Cyber Ninja CEO concurred with. He admitted that in the Epoch Times article, but he and Cotton still claim that they need it. They still claim they need this information from Dominion. And, oh, if you just give it to us, this can all be over in like 2 days. But Matt Bernhard explained that when you look at a machine's firmware, you typically compare it to something else to determine if it has changed. He points out that these auditors have nothing to compare it to. So he said, why do they even need this? They have nothing to compare it to, even if they were able to get in there and get this information. And if they tried to reverse engineer the process, it would take a lot of time. So again, what are they really asking for? Why do they need this access? I mean, does anyone other than Q-Loons trust these people to conduct a legitimate audit and to not tamper with ballots or the machines? And even Republican members of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors have now called for an end to this, as they called it, a sham and a con. They wrote a letter and held a press conference yesterday saying, this needs to end. We're becoming a laughingstock. This is dangerous for democracy. None of this is done in a legitimate, no one's looking for bamboo fibers or using blue lights and 5G cameras in a legitimate audit. And this is a big deal because 4 out of 5 of the board supervisors are Republicans. 4 out of 5 recommend fluoride when you brush. Just kidding. So this admonition of what's going on over there was unanimous, and they said it's time that we all stand for the truth. So here's the deal. I think there are a certain number of people in this country who honestly believe that the election was stolen. But I also believe that there are a lot of people in positions of power who are just grifters. And I think they're trying to use this. I think number one, they're trying to use this to make money. It's putting a lot of money in Republicans' pockets because they pretend to be fighting this evil election fraud. And so they're making money. It's raising their public profiles. You've got companies and individuals who otherwise would not have been known. So it's helping to raise their status. And 3, they're using it as a justification to enact their racist, restrictive voting laws. what Retrumplican is going to say, oh, I think this goes too far. I think that, these voting laws are just too restrictive. I think that you're overreaching. If they really believe that they're putting these voting laws in place to prevent another Republican from having the presidency stolen from them. No, of course not. And then 4 is just they want to maintain control over Trump's base. As long as they continue to give Trump's base an enemy in this fight, and they keep them engaged and believing that Trump was robbed of a second term, they can exert power over them. They can get them to do just about anything. We saw that on January 6th. That's why they have to continue setting up these false fights. And that's what I believe that this is. I alluded to this a little bit ago, but they know, right? So some of these people know for a fact that there's no evidence of widespread systemic voter or election fraud. But they can't ever, not ever, go back to Trump's base and tell them that. They can't tell them the truth, not ever. Imagine if they had to tell them the truth. Imagine how just the capital terrorists alone would lose their minds. I mean, even more than they already have. Some of them are facing life sentences. How do you think they would react? How do you think their families would react if they discovered that they literally threw their life away for a lie? They did it all for nothing. They gave up the rest of their life, all of their freedoms, for nothing. So instead of these faux auditors having to go back to them and admit that they found nothing improper, they pretend that they need information which they know the county either can't or won't give them. And then they say, see, they're hiding something. We told you they were in on it. That's why they won't give it to us. They're part of the deep state. They won't hand it over because they helped to steal this election from Trump. And then they use it. They'll use this to bolster Trump's reputation as an outsider who was fighting for them. They're going to say, see, he must have been doing a great job. He must have been draining the swamp. That's why they refuse to admit that he won, and they won't let him have a second term. So this is the perfect scenario for them. They don't have to prove a damn thing. And they can go on blaming deep state operatives and pretending that Trump won and he's a victim. I know there's evidence of fraud, but we can't prove it because these deep state operatives, they just won't give it up. This Karen Fenn or Fan, whatever her name is, the state senator, Retrumplican, she's threatening perhaps to take the county to court to try to get all of this information. And of course, they would have to do the same with Dominion. I almost hope they do. But anyway, guys, this is what they do. This is how they're fooling his base. This is how they technically are telling the truth, but their headlines are complete lies because nobody's looking any further, and they're never going to have to prove it. It is absolutely the perfect situation for them. So they're going to keep asking for things that they know they can't have. This is their game, I believe. All right, I'll keep you posted if I hear any more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.